The clerk handed me the key without making eye contact, clear throat. The room was on the second floor, end of the hall. I was driving cross-country, had been on the road for 14 hours. My eyes burned, my back ached. I just needed a bed and a few hours of silence. The motel was one of those places you find at 2 a.m. when you have no other options. Neon sign flickering, parking lot mostly empty, a truck in the corner with its light still on. No, I took the stairs. The carpet was stained and peeling. The hallway smelled like cigarette smoke and something older. I found room 216, slid the key in, lock clicked. I walked inside, dropped my bag on the floor, and sat down on the edge of the bed. The sheets were rough. The air conditioner rattled and hummed. I was too tired to care. I stood up to close the curtains. That's when I noticed the door connecting my room to the one next door. A heavy wooden door. Deadbolt on my side. I checked it. Locked. Good enough. I turned off the light and lay down. The room went dark. The only sound was the AC unit groaning and the occasional gust of wind rattling the window. Then I heard it. A sound from the room next door. A slow, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the carpet. I froze. I was certain that room had been empty. I hadn't seen anyone in the parking lot. No car near my room, no light under the door. I listened. The dragging stopped. Then I heard the connecting door handle turn. I sat up so fast my head spun. That door was locked. I checked it. I knew it was locked. The handle turned again. Slower this time. A quiet rattling. Someone was trying to get into my room. I reached for my phone. No signal. Of course. Middle of nowhere, Nebraska. I didn't even have a landline in my room. I pressed my back against the headboard, watching that door, waiting. The handle stopped moving. For a long moment, nothing. Then I heard footsteps, walking away. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at that door. I sat there for what felt like an hour, maybe more. Time moves differently when you're that scared. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every gust of wind made me hold my breath. I kept waiting for the handle to turn again, but it didn't. The silence was worse than the sound. At least when I heard something, I knew what I was dealing with. The silence left everything to my imagination, and my imagination was running wild. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I had to do something. I looked around the room for anything I could use. A lamp, a chair, anything. I grabbed the heavy glass ashtray from the nightstand. It wasn't much, but it was something. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking. I walked to the connecting door, pressed my ear against the wood. I listened for a full minute. Nothing. I slid the deadbolt open, took a breath, and I opened the door. The room next door was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no luggage, no sign anyone had been there. But the carpet had drag marks. Long, fresh drag marks across the floor, the kind that looked like something heavy had been pulled across it. I didn't stay to investigate. I grabbed my bag and ran to the front desk. The clerk looked at me like I was crazy. He said that room had been empty for 3 weeks. The door was locked from both sides. No one had been in that room. I wanted to argue, but I just paid and left. I drove for hours before I could think about it clearly. I know what I heard. I know that handle turned. I know the drag marks were real, but I also know that room was empty. The lock on that connecting door was old, the kind you couldn't open without a key. The clerk had no reason to lie. And yet, I checked the back seat 3 times that day. I still don't know who was in that room, or what they were dragging, or why they stopped. I just know I'll never stay at a motel with a connecting door again. A J. I've been doing deliveries for about 2 years now, mostly food, sometimes packages. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills and I get to work alone. That night was just another shift. Rainy, cold, the kind of night where you're grateful for a heater that works and a radio that doesn't. I had 3 deliveries left on my route. 2 were to apartments. 1 was to a house on the edge of town. The address was one I'd never been to before. That should have been my first warning, Marcier. The house was at the end of a dead-end street. It was old. The kind of old where you can see it in the sagging porch and the peeling paint. The yard was overgrown, weeds taller than my knees, but there was a light on in the front window, so someone was home. I grabbed the package and walked up the path. I noticed the mailbox was rusted. The doorbell was broken. I knocked instead. The door opened almost immediately. Too fast, like they had been standing right behind it, clear throat. An old woman stood in the doorway. She wore a floral dress and had white hair that hung past her shoulders. She smiled at me, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. I handed her the package. She took it and looked at the label. Then she said something that made me stop. She said, "Oh, it's finally here. I've been waiting for this for a long time." I asked her what it was. She looked up at me and said, "A gift." Then she thanked me and closed the door. I walked back to my van and sat there for a moment. Something about her was off. I pulled out my phone and checked the order details. That's when I saw it. The order had been placed on a date that made my blood run cold. The order was from 3 years ago. I checked again. 3 years. To the day. I called dispatch. The dispatcher was confused. She said there was no record of that order in the system. She asked me to read back the address. I did. Then she went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "That house has been abandoned for over a decade. No one lives there." I looked back at the house. The light in the window was still on. I could see the outline of someone standing there, watching me. I didn't stay. I threw the van in reverse and drove away as fast as I could. I looked in my rearview mirror. The light turned off. The house went completely dark. I've never told anyone the full story, not even my manager. I just said I delivered the package. I didn't tell them about the woman, or the date on the label, or the smile that didn't reach her eyes, ETA. I almost kept driving, but something made me stop a few blocks away. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. I knocked on the neighbor's door. An older man answered. I apologized for bothering him and asked about the house at the end of the street. He went pale. He said no one had lived there in over 10 years, not since the woman passed away. He asked me why I wanted to know. I told him I'd just delivered a package there. He looked at me like I'd just told him I saw a ghost, clear throat. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I looked up that address. I found old newspaper articles about the house. The woman who lived there was named Margaret. She died alone in that house 3 years ago. But here's what made me stop breathing. The article said she was found holding a package that had been delivered the day she died. No one knew who sent it. No one knew what was inside. It was never opened. She died holding it, just like she'd been waiting for something, a fear. I still don't know what was in that package, or why it came to me 3 years later, or who that woman was who opened the door. But I think about it every time I make a delivery, every time I knock on a stranger's door. I wonder if I'll see her again. I never deliver to that street anymore. I don't even drive past it. Some addresses are better left undelivered, and some doors should stay closed. A week later, I found a package on my own doorstep. No return address, no label, just my name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I threw it in the trash and drove it to the dump myself. I told myself it was nothing, a prank, a coincidence. But I know what I saw that night. I know who opened that door, and I know she said she'd been waiting for a long time. I just don't know if she was waiting for the package or for me, Pakel. I still don't know what was in that first package, or who delivered the one to my house, or why that woman opened the door 3 years after she died. But I think about it every time I make a delivery, every time I knock on a stranger's door. I wonder if I'll see her again. I never deliver to that street anymore. I don't even drive past it. Some addresses are better left undelivered, and some doors should stay closed. One fact. I've always loved camping alone, Kent. There's something about being in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the trees and the sky. That trip was supposed to be 3 days in Montana. No cell service, no people, just me and the wilderness. I arrived late afternoon, set up my tent, gathered wood, cooked dinner over an open fire. The sun went down fast. The forest went dark. I sat by the fire for a while, watching the flames, listening to the wind. Then I went to bed. I zipped up my tent, lay down on my sleeping bag, and I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't know what time it was. My phone was dead. The fire had gone out. Everything was silent. Then I heard it, a branch snapping. Close, too close. I held my breath, listening. Then another snap, closer this time. Someone was out there, walking through the woods, walking toward my camp. I lay perfectly still. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. Number 4. The footsteps stopped right outside my tent. I could see a shadow through the fabric. Someone was standing there, just standing, not moving, not speaking. I wanted to call out, but I couldn't make myself make a sound. I just stared at that shadow, waiting, hoping they would leave. Then the shadow moved. It circled my tent, slowly, deliberately, like it was examining my camp, like it was checking to see if I was alone. The shadow moved again. I heard the zipper on my tent begin to open. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. I scrambled backward, pressing myself against the far wall of the tent. The zipper kept going. Then the flap opened. A figure leaned in. I couldn't see a face, just a silhouette against the dark forest. The figure reached inside. I don't know what it was reaching for. I don't want to know. I screamed, "Duh!" The figure pulled back. I heard footsteps running away, fast, crashing through the woods. Then silence. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in my tent with my back against the far wall, watching the flap, waiting for it to open again. Every sound made me jump. Every gust of wind made me hold my breath. I kept the knife from my cooking kit in my hand. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe longer. Time doesn't move the same when you're that scared. When the sun finally started to rise, I almost cried with relief. When I finally had the courage to go outside, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There were footprints in the dirt, leading from the tree line to my tent and back into the woods. I followed them. They led to a clearing about 50 yards away. In the middle of the clearing, there was a small pile of rocks, stacked in a neat pile, like a marker or a warning. I took a photo, then I packed up my camp and left. I didn't stay for my 3rd day. I stopped at the ranger station on my way out. I showed the ranger the photo of the rock pile. He looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at me. He said those piles have been showing up all over this forest for years. No one knows who makes them. But he told me something that made me shiver. He said that every time a pile appears, someone reports seeing something in the woods that night, something that doesn't belong. He asked me if I'd seen anything. I told him about the tent, about the zipper, about the hand reaching in. He nodded like he'd heard it before. Sigh. I don't camp alone anymore, and I never go into the woods without checking the ground around my tent first. I still have that photo on my phone. I look at it sometimes, trying to figure out what it means. I don't know who was outside my tent that night, or why they left those rocks, or what they wanted when they opened that zipper. But I do know one thing. That forest was supposed to be empty. No one else was there. I was the only one on that trail, the only one for miles. And yet, someone found my tent.